Hey, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. I've had a couple weeks off, sort of, but last week I did an episode on the bands coming to the local Orange County Fair. I've done a couple interviews in the last week, but I haven't had time to sit down behind here and talk music. So we're going back to our perennial battle, which is our mini series of 2024, where we're talking Iron Maiden and we're talking Judas Priest. Tonight we revisit the Iron Maiden 1988 Seventh Son of a Seventh Son album. And then we're going to have that go up against 1990s, 2 years later, Painkiller from Judas Priest. That was their 12th studio album. It was, and Seventh Son, of course, was the seventh studio album from Iron Maiden. And I didn't take many more notes than that, but I'm happy we got a few people on tonight in the middle of summer. We're in a heat wave in New York State. For those that are watching everywhere else, it's like 100 degrees out. It's supposed to be over 100 tomorrow. That's a
Same
little
here.
story that I'll tell you about because I saw the Seventh Son tour at the Mid Hudson Civic Center. It was a back whatever year, back like probably 88, 89, whenever that tour was, I guess it was. And it was a sweat box, the Mid Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie. It was so damn hot that you could hardly survive it. I don't know how I really did. I was a young kid still then, but it was so hot. We were going upstairs, the bathrooms in the upstairs part of the Civic Center. And we were taking our shirts off and putting them in the sink and then putting our shirts back on.
Wow.
And it got so hot
Nuts.
that I don't know, Tim, were you at that show?
I was not.
It was so hot that the ceiling got condensation and it started to drip. And towards the end of the night, the end of the Iron Maiden set, the fire alarms went off because of the heat sensors.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was
Wow,
just
that sounds
miserable in there. It made you never want to go back to the Civic Center again. But of course I did. But that was towards the end of the run up, seeing many, many shows at the Civic Center. I saw some in the 90s. Hardly anything goes on there now. But Ace Frehley was the opening band. So since it's such a hot night, I kind of thought about that show tonight. And we got James Delisle in here from Crucial Pain. We got Tony Dio. We got Count Ralphus, our local historian. We got Tim Dennebaum, of course, the lead vocalist from British Steel. He's got his British Steel koozie up tonight. We got Christian from Connecticut in the house. I'm not pronouncing his name because they're going to screw it up as usual. But looks like there's 6 of us tonight to discuss these 2 albums. We're also going to put a little bonus at the end at Tony Dio's idea. There's a couple Maiden albums we never revisited or never visited in this series. It would be the No Prayer for the Dying and the Fear of the Dark albums. It's just going to let us know which one we like next. And when we come back for the next part of this, whether it's next week or in a couple weeks, we're going to talk about the replacement years when Ripper came in and when Blaze Bayley came in and what they like. James really likes that idea. It's a tough one for me because I don't really own those records. I hear Iron Maiden play some of those songs live, but I don't have them anymore. I did own them at one time, but so that's gonna be a tough one for me. I guess I'm gonna have to listen to them when we come back
On YouTube.
I'll have to go to YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, YouTube Music has them.
Yep. And I was listening to the Iron Maiden albums because they're on Spotify. The Iron Maiden's not going to hide that stuff. They liked them. They still play stuff from them live when you go see them. So. But
right.
anyhow, whole nother subject. So James, this was his idea originally, months and months ago. I'm going to let him kick it off tonight again.
All right, cool. So, yeah, this is we're gonna, I guess, face off Seventh Son of a Seventh Son and Painkiller.
Yeah.
So, I love the cover art for Seventh Son. I like the weird, mysterious floating eddy and the glaciers in the back and all the references to older Maiden records on the back. You know, you got the
Yep.
Power Slave Eddie biting through the chains and a number of the Beast Eddie, all that shit.
Yep.
So, in preparation for this show today, I listened to this album while I was at work.
So did I.
And man, this has always been a least reached for Iron Maiden album for me. I find this album to be really fucking boring.
Really?
Yeah, I like Moonchild. Can I Play with Madness is okay. Evil That Men Do is okay.
Okay.
It's okay. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son makes me want to take a nap. It's
No.
fucking boring. The Prophecy does absolutely nothing for me. It just kind of sits there.
Boy, a real
The
hater here.
Clairvoyant is okay. And Only the Good Die Young just kind of ends this album on like a blah note. I think this is one of Iron Maiden's more boring albums. There are current Iron Maiden albums that I like way more than this one.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And I've been listening to this one for years and years. I just never, it's always the one that goes to the bottom of the CD pile. And I only really reach for it when I'm in Maiden mode, like when I'm listening to everything and I've exhausted all my favorite ones, I go for this one. I really just, there's nothing about it that really stands out and grabs me by the balls. I think the production's a little flat and a little thin. And I think the songwriting just kind of really isn't there for this one, man. This is like, to me, a major step down from Somewhere in Time. So it's not even the synthesizers that turn me off. I don't mind the synths on this. I just think the songs kind of stink. Now, on the other side of the spectrum here, Painkiller is one of my all-time top favorite Judas Priest records. Definitely a top 5, maybe even sometimes a top 3. There's no snoozers, there's no bullshit, there's no bad tracks on this one at all. I mean, even the deep cuts, like we all know Painkiller, that's the big hit here. But even like Between the Hammer and the Anvil, I'm playing that at work before and I'm like, fuck, this song just rules. It's so fucking melodic and catchy and just rips. A Touch of Evil is one of my top favorite Judas Priest songs of all time. I put that above a lot of theirs. So that's a fantastic goddamn song. And when I saw them do that in 2004, that was a highlight of the night for me. One Shot at Glory, Hell Patrol, All Guns Blazing, Metal Meltdown, Nightcrawler is so badass. This is a killer album, and I've always felt like this was an apology for the 2 albums before it. I felt like they'd made this album and said, hey, guys, forget the last 2. Sorry about that. We had to screw around a little bit. We had to play with the synthesizers. We had to write songs for the broads and all that. Here you go. Here's a real kick-ass metal album. That's my opinion. I'm taking Painkiller all day, every day. It's a 10 out of 10 metal record for me. And it's a top Judas Priest album. I think Rob Halford's in just about damn near top vocal form on this. And yeah, this is like Hulk Hogan versus Classy Freddie Blassie. I'm taking Painkiller.
Hulk Hogan versus Classy.
Well, when you talk about those 2 songs, The Hammer and Anvil, I was a big wrestling fan, still am. I don't watch as much as I used to, but that was Jim, the Anvil Neidhart, and Greg the Hammer
Yeah,
Valentine.
yeah.
So I don't know if I kind of
Boy.
ruined the perception of the song for me, but I'm like, are they talking that we're talking about the wrestlers here? So we lost Ralph. He did say that he was getting hit. I think when he was coming on, we didn't really hear him, but he did mention that he was getting hit by a bad storm. And my wife was just saying, and he lives up in that area, and they have tornado warnings and everything coming. I could even lose power because we're going to get hit with a line coming through here too. So let's hope I don't. Well, let's hope Ralph comes back, and I think that's why he disappeared. He has problems with his
Yeah.
internet already because he's kind of out in the woods. But anyhow, so Tony Dio, what do you got to say, my friend?
Well, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, I kind of have to agree with James a whole lot. It's never been one of my favorites. It's I don't know, I was kind of getting off the boat on Somewhere in Time because I loved, the everything up through Power Slave so much. And Somewhere in Time, they started getting a little more experimental, a little more proggy. But I like that album. It's got a lot of good songs on it. But when Seventh Son first came out, I think the first single that was released from it was "Can I Play with Madness," and it was such a poppy tune at the time. Now it's cool, it's catchy. I kind of do like that song a little bit. But I didn't even get this album when it first came out. I remember some friends having it and were playing it, and just I don't know. I was just getting into more other stuff at that time, I guess. Metallica, and it turned me on to like some heavier stuff. So I didn't even pick it up, and I don't recall them coming through this area on this tour. I've had some people tell me that they did, but I don't remember any advertisements or anything about it. But as far as the album goes, there's a couple of songs that I do like. I really do like the Clairvoyant. I thought it was a really cool song, and the Evil That Men Do is a Maiden classic. It's just a great song. So that's those two are pretty much my favorite on this album. If you can find, I've showed a couple before in this series that we've been doing. If you can find the Castle versions of these CDs, they're just great because you get a bonus disc, and this one has a bunch of cool bonus tracks. It has them doing Massacre from Thin Lizzy, and they recut Prowler and Charlotte the Harlot with Bruce on vocals. Just
Nice.
really cool set if you can find them. I think they went back and did some remasters, and to me these are lower in volume, but they sound better to me than the remastered versions. But great if you can find them.
So I googled the dates, Tony. They played Greensboro on July 23rd of 1988.
Yeah, I would have been out of high school by then, and so I probably just didn't even hear about it.
The show
How
I
did
was
we?
talking
How did?
about.
How did we ever live without about the internet?
The show
Find out about stuff.
the show I was talking about was on July 6th of 1988. So not far from when we're taping. We're taping on the 15th here.
Yeah, I have met some people that said that they did go. So yeah, I guess they did play in the area.
They actually
So
so they played Charlotte, North Carolina on August 9th.
wow, cool.
So they were
Cool.
they looped back through. Yep.
And I think too, I was just like I said, I had moved on by then, and the album didn't do much for me. So I just wasn't paying attention to it, to be honest with you. Moving on to Painkiller. Such a good album, heavy album. Now, honestly, this isn't even in my top 5 Judas Priest albums. I felt over the years, my only complaint with this, there was a lot of contrived heaviness on it. I felt like they had to get heavy, they had to come back. But I remember seeing the video for Painkiller get world premiered on Headbangers Ball, and was like, wow, this is great. The Priests are back. They're playing full on, heavy again. But there's some good songs on it. My only complaint with it is the guitar tone on it. It's got this thin guitar tone, like they had almost a little heavier than the guitar synth that they had used on like Turbo and some on Ram It Down. But I guess to balance it out, Scott Travis's incredible drumming makes up for that, because he definitely kicked them into gear. And like I said, they had to get heavy. Thrash was huge at that time, so they came back with a full-on speed metal song with Painkiller, and such a great guitar solo in that song as well. Until I saw him live, I had no clue that Glenn played the entire solo. That solo lasts for I mean, Tim, do you know? Is it's probably about a good 2 minute solo? or
Yeah, it's a
something?
long solo. It gives me a little bit of a
Yeah.
break. I know that when we do it.
You would think that they would trade off, but no, it's
Yeah.
all Glenn doing that solo. But Hell Patrol, love that one, great song. Between the Hammer and the Anvil was a cool one. Nightcrawler was cool. I love One Shot at Glory. That's one of my favorites on it. I never cared much for Touch of Evil. They released that for a single. It's okay, but it kind of sounded like something that would have been on Ram It Down. It's just kind of because it's got that synthesizer in it, and I don't know. It's very, very commercial. But I did see them on this tour. I saw them on a package that some of you might remember. Did it come there? Operation Rock and Roll.
Yep.
So it was a package tour. It was
That
them
came
with
to the fairgrounds here in Middletown. Yep.
They co-headlined with Alice Cooper, and it was Metal Church, Dangerous Toys,
Dangerous
Wow.
Toys.
and it was supposed to have been Motorhead, but Motorhead didn't actually play the Raleigh show for some reason. They pulled off and didn't play.
They didn't play the Middletown show either. I saw them a few days before, maybe a week before, at the Meadowlands Arena. I actually got a picture of Rob Halford. It hangs in my store from that event, from that concert. And Lemmy had slipped and fell, and I think broke some ribs. And what happened was, then that Motorhead pulled off for the rest of the tour. I think
Wow.
broken ribs or broken wrists or some broken bones. So that's
Keepers.
Tuesday, August 30th. Actually, Wednesday, August 31st is when I saw it. Raleigh, North Carolina. It's actually got the dates in the CD. It's a little promo CD they put out. Yeah, I that was supposed to be my first time finally getting to see Motorhead, and I was so disappointed that it didn't play. I got a couple cool pieces to show here. This is the Painkiller 12-inch single that came out about 9 years ago for a record store day, and it's saw shaped. If you can see,
Sweet.
It's saw shaped. This is actually this is a U.S. pressing, first U.S. pressing of Painkiller 2. These are kind of hard to get. I actually got this a few months ago. I've been trying to add one to the collection for a while, and they pop up every once in a while, but they're pretty pricey. And this is a promo CD that came out for the album.
Sweet.
Promoting. It looks like a saw blade. It looks like it's on
a
card.
I've never seen that.
It looks like it's on a card. Like it'd be hanging in a hardware store.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Exactly
a saw.
what it looks
yeah, saw
like
blade.
like DeWalt tools or something.
Yeah.
And it even says coarse tooth up at the top. But what it is it's called Sharpest Cuts, and it's like a best of something. It's got Painkiller, and then they just put like 10 other songs, from their from their catalog, just a promotional thing. Yeah, it's something I found in a store one day. I thought that's pretty cool. I got to have that. Here's my tour book that I got at the Operation Rock and Roll shows.
Cool.
Oh man,
pretty cool tour book for that. Yeah, they were great. That was a great show. I mean, they they broke out, some of the older stuff, and I think they might have played Turbo Lover. Maybe that might have been the only thing they played from that period. The rest of it was just classic Priest, if I remember right. But yeah, and then that would be the last tour with Halford for a while. At the end of that tour, I think he supposedly fell off the bike or got clocked coming out from under the stage, and that was it. He left, and things would, the whole Priest story would change from there with him and their future and his future there for a few years. So, but yeah, between the two, I got to definitely go with Painkiller. I do like that much better.
No doubt.
Now,
I remember reading something in Lemmy's book about that Operation Rock tour where he was not happy, and he didn't say Dangerous Toys outright, but he said that the Axl Rose clone singer on the tour, there was a problem with him, and that was kind of the reason why Motorhead jumped off. There was an issue there that allegedly, I don't want to say it, with Dangerous Toys.
which is weird because that's Jason McMaster, and he seems to be really cool with the
He's
the
super
metal
cool.
scene. You would think he'd probably be buddies with Lemmy,
You would think. I guess he
he's
must have
played in
rubbed him the
such
wrong way.
other heavy
so
bands
you
over
don't
the
think
years.
that Lemmy really broke bones? He fell off the stage.
Well, I do know this, Steve. When they didn't play the Raleigh show that I attended, they played in Wilmington, North Carolina that night at a small venue there.
Oh
that
wow!
night. Yeah.
So there you go.
The conspiracy
go.
is opening now.
Yeah.
I remember that tour well because that was back when we were heavily involved with record companies at my record store. We actually did a window display for the Dangerous Toys record.
That
right
tour
around
did
that.
not sell well at all, and it was
Wow.
it was kind of like I don't know, maybe just when you started seeing the tides turning in the world of heavy music because it just didn't
Grunge.
sell well at all from what I've heard.
Metal Church was Human Factor tour, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey Ralph, you got a storm coming through? Did it come through? Maybe I should have you go next in case you do lose internet or power.
Yeah, right before that's why I was a few minutes late even logging in because there was like wind going crazy out here. Shit was blowing all over the place. Now we got lightning like crazy. But yeah, I don't know.
Why don't you
right now,
why don't you do it now just in
yeah, I
case?
can't even see any of you guys right now, and the sound keeps going in and out.
All
I
right,
got
so
the new microphone finally.
so-
We can hear you fine.
we can
though.
hear and see
Yeah.
you good. So go
Yeah.
do your thing.
I just can't. Okay, so yeah, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son. I think this album is great. I got it on cassette, but like Tony was saying, when this came out, I didn't run out and buy it. And I liked Somewhere in Time, so I should have still been on board when Maiden came out, but with this album, but I was so involved with the heavy stuff that there was like really no bands of that era like kind of survived for me at the time. But this was to me the last really great Iron Maiden album. I'm surprised James didn't like it so much because to me the thing that stands out the most is the bite of Steve Harris's bass. He's such a vicious bass player on this album, and the production's not the greatest, but his bass sounds amazing. I thought, and it's real clear throughout the whole album. It just like really stood out to me. I would think every bass player would really love it. But
I do
yeah,
agree
all
with
the
you there.
songs are
The
great.
bass does sound killer.
I even got this snow globe, Seventh Son snow globe.
That's cool.
That's cool as hell.
Nice.
That's I never seen that before.
No, that's real cool.
Yeah, my wife collects snow globes, so we got like all sorts of cool ones,
Yeah,
serial
that's
killer
cool,
ones
man.
and
Wow.
monsters and stuff. But so yeah, then Judas Priest Painkiller, I've said it before, like the two albums before it, I really hated. They were so far off my radar, but then when I seen the video for Painkiller, like Tony said, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking heavy again. Travis definitely kicked them into gear from then on. He was a great drummer to give them a lot of energy again. But like Tony was saying, like for me, like they were kind of like Pantera was starting to really break, and you could see Halford was being influenced by that because he does the fight thing right after this album, and that's really influenced by Pantera. So they knew heavy music was getting back, but I just felt like it was them trying to get back, and I felt like they betrayed me so much with the last two albums that I just didn't run out and get it. I love the album now. I think every song on it's great. I think like when they're heavy today, it sounds more like Painkiller stuff than it sounds like the heavy songs from Free Will, like Foundation of Faith and Scream for Vengeance. I think this is like what they keep going back to this Painkiller sound when they're doing the really heavy songs. But yeah, I got the CD. I got the original backpack hanging up behind me. I got the Touch of Evil single on CD. And I got the
Nice.
Nightcrawler single on CD.
Oh,
sweet. Very cool.
Weird cover, like a worm, glowing in the dark worm.
That's weird.
But,
Well, it's a night crawler. It's a worm. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if I have to pick one of these, I'd have to go with the Seventh Son. It's the one that I liked right from the get-go when it came out. And I mean, once I got it and stuff, but it took me a while to get into Painkiller. Now when I go back, like I'm surprised I missed any of these tours. Like to think of Maiden playing right at the Civic Center, not far from my house, and I didn't go. It shows where my mind was at the time, because I would have killed to went to that show now. But I just at the time I didn't even care. None of my friends cared. We were going to some death metal show or whatever the crazy thrash band that was coming through, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
I'm
I'm
shocked
going
you
with
went there. I thought you were going to tell me stories about being there because I mean there was a lot of people from Middletown at that show. Of course, maybe
yeah,
not your
none of my
clique at the
friends.
moment. No,
Yeah, my clique, none of my clique cared about any of those bands. I mean, none of them. AC/DC, Sabbath,
wow.
all of them. Even Dio at that point. I mean,
Mm,
none of them were really like we had to go see him and stuff. I didn't
yeah,
even start going to like I only caught a handful of like traditional metal bands throughout the 90s. You know, a couple of years later, I went to an AC/DC show, and
yep.
then at the end of the decade, when Iron Maiden regrouped, I got this shirt from that Ed Hunter tour. I think that was like '99. But that's when I
Nice.
finally started going backwards and
Yeah.
started really appreciating all the stuff that I kind of skipped out on there for a while.
So in case you do lose electricity, we have one more question for you that Tony's fixed up for us. And we'll let him do that before we go around again, in case we do lose them. If we don't lose them, that'll be cool. But no prayer no prayer for the dying or fear of the dark. Which of those albums do you enjoy more?
That's a hard one, because like I haven't put either one of them on in a little
Neither have
while.
I. I
I
know.
love the song "Fear of the Dark." I like that song is a classic to me. But then that album, it's like it's okay. Um, No
Yep.
Prayer for the Dying. I'm not sure. It's really hard. If I would have known that, I would have listened to both of them today. But
Yeah,
I
me
guess I'll
too.
say No Prayer for the Dying. I'll say.
Okay. Of course, you can chime in if you're still here as we go around again, because some of these other guys have a little more knowledge on it, maybe because I didn't do homework either, and I haven't gone to listen to either one of those albums in many, many moons. All right, Tim,
All right, it's my turn, huh?
good to see you,
Uh,
man.
yeah, seems like it's been a while since we've been on, huh?
Couple weeks
Uh,
since I've done this one, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So when Seventh Son came out, this was really when it's the Maiden was kind of really going in that prog direction. They kind of started it with Somewhere in Time. They kind of continued on with Seventh Son, and actually, it was probably. Well, I mean, the next two albums, which I'll talk about in a minute, I kind of like them too. But somewhere after that, they started to lose me a little bit. But this album has some standout songs for me. Like I always liked Can I Play with Madness was very catchy. It was definitely a catchy song. That was like their first single, but I always liked it, And some standout songs on there. I was like The Prophecy and The Clairvoyant for some reason. Those songs just stood out to me. But doing my homework for this, I went back and listened to this album, and it's like I have fond memories. It was definitely a good album. Um, and I feel like nowadays the Maiden their sound hasn't really changed much from this album now. I almost feel like that's kind of where they kind of ended their sound, and everything has kind of sounded like that since then. Um, the exception being the two albums after this, I felt like they had more of a Bruce Dickinson influence on them, possibly, I think, with the songwriting. But other than that, it seems like all their other stuff kind of reminds me of Seventh Son and since then. So that being said, so Painkiller, of course, people love Painkiller. And it's funny, I think I like it more now than when it came out. It's one of those albums that grew on me over time. And of course, I always liked the Painkiller, the title track. And yeah, I mean, when I listen back to it now, it is a killer album. And my standouts, of course, Painkiller is great, but there really isn't anything weak on there, honestly. Nightcrawler, I love that song. It's a standout. Touch of Evil. Um, yeah, I mean, it's all great. I mean, really, there's nothing weak on there. Um, British Steel, of course, Painkiller, that's like a staple. We usually close the show with that. But that being said, we do Touch of Evil, which is usually in the set. But we haven't done Nightcrawler in a while, but I love doing that song. Nightcrawler is great. And we have done Hell Patrol. I'd like to kind of get that back in the mix too. It's been a long time, but we did do that a little bit. But people love that album. And then just from a purely metal standpoint, I mean, it's smokes Seventh Son in that regard. It's definitely a lot heavier. That was definitely that era when I know Halford was really getting influenced by Pantera. That was, and you could see that influence, I think, there. Because then then he left the band right after that and started Fight, which was very Pantera influence. But yeah, I would definitely, for me, and I still like Seventh Son. It's a great album, but yeah, I would definitely say Painkiller takes the win for me in this little battle.
Cool.
And
Well,
I didn't see the Seventh Son tour. They did play. I was living in up, Schenectady. They did play at RPI on that tour.
Oh,
I
it
think in
did.
'88. I didn't go to that. I didn't see it, but I did see the Painkiller tour in Albany.
Yep, I was there too. Would you?
Yeah, with Megadeth.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I missed the Seventh Son tour. I wish I had seen it, but I did catch. I think it was No Prayer for the Dying. I believe. Let me just check that because I could tell you in a second.
That Maiden tour playing Poughkeepsie and Troy, that was pretty close to be playing spot.
Yeah, it was.
back
It
then.
was. It was definitely the No Prayer for the Dying because they opened up with Tail Gunner and that was the lead track.
Oh, okay.
So I did see that tour. It was with
Yeah,
Anthrax.
yeah.
But yeah, so but for me, it's definitely Painkiller. Have to say.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I was just looking in that tour book that I had, and I found this set list. Now, this is from a few years ago. I guess someone gave it to me. I can't even recall how I got it. I stuck it in this, but they actually did. This is from the Firepower tour, but they did 4 songs from Painkiller. They opened with One Shot of Glory, and they played Hell Patrol, Touch of Evil, and Painkiller. So
Wow.
they think a lot of that album, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
An interesting
Awesome.
note from the Seventh Son tour. Here are the opening acts. So this is for the whole tour worldwide. These are all the bands that open for them on this tour. It's quite a mixed match. Vinnie Vincent Invasion, David
Nice.
Lee Roth,
Wow.
Anthrax, Megadeth, Guns
Oh,
N'
wow.
Roses. Of course, they weren't all opening the same night. It's a big festival. But
Still some heavy
during the
hitters.
tour, Hurricane, Wasp, Halloween, that had to be in Europe, Killer Dwarfs, a
Wow.
band called Ossian, Trust. That's a band that was on the heavy metal soundtrack, wasn't it?
French band.
Yeah. Great White,
Nico McBrain was in the band at one point.
LA Guns.
Wow.
Nice.
Somewheres Metallica opened up for him on this tour.
That's all in one tour?
All on, according to Wikipedia, this is all opening acts
Steve,
on the Seventh Son tour.
I believe one of the shows possibly was maybe Donington or something. Maybe
Yeah.
because I think they played with David Lee Roth. or
That
something
could have
like,
been one of them, yeah, where Metallica.
maybe.
So yeah,
yeah,
so this
maybe
is the whole
Wasp.
tour, so it could have been
Yeah.
something like that. Frehley's Comet, who I saw Ace Frehley
Now,
open up,
I,
and
the guy that-
Sabotage, and Testament
Wow.
also opened up for Maiden on this tour. So.
the person that told me that they saw him in North Carolina said it was Ace Frehley.
That's who I saw. So
Yeah, I'm not sure who they played with in Troy. Because obviously I didn't go to the show, but
it shows here the Shoreline Amphitheater, wherever that is, that's in Mountain View, California. It was June 5th of '88. Guns N' Roses was the opening like that.
I'm pretty sure GNR got booted off that tour because there was problems with the amount of space that
Oh,
Iron Maiden were giving Guns N' Roses
I kind of remember
as
that.
the opening band. And Axl was like, you know what? We don't fucking need this. Like, we're fucking huge right now. We don't
Guns N'
need
Roses
Iron Maiden.
were being huge then. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Christian, what's up? Get your point of view here.
Not much. So,
Other than that, yeah.
yeah. So going with the CDs. So I have Tony was mentioned before the Castle version of of the Maiden releases. That's the version I have, is Seventh Son. So yeah, it's pretty cool. The bonus disc on this has cover the Thin Lizzy cover Massacre. There's a couple re-recorded songs. There's Prowler and Charlotte the Harlot, which were re-recorded with Bruce Dickinson on vocals. And then there's a few live versions from this tour. I think it's from I think they're the same versions that were on the Made in England video, which was of this tour. Which I also have that on VHS, which is in the closet. I didn't drag that out, but I did get the CD. But yeah, I guess I was glad to get into Maiden when they were doing these re-releases, because like all the albums had the bonus disc with all the like the B-sides and everything, which was pretty cool. But I guess going back to the main album, yeah, I mean, I like the cover art on there. It's I don't know if it's like my favorite cover art with Maiden. I'd probably go with Somewhere in Time. But you know, this one, it's kind of like the opposite, where the cover art on Somewhere in Time is just so dense and had so much going on. It's like they go with, you know, something a little bit more simplistic here. But I don't always like Eddie holding the kind of, I don't like it's like the fetus in his colon or something. I don't know what that is. But,
It's
I think, you
colon.
know,
He's
I
a
think if you watch
placenta
the
or
Made in
something.
England video and maybe they showed it on the tour.
I'm never gonna unsee that, dude. Oh, that's brilliant. This
I
album's a
remember
bag of
they-
shit.
they had like an animation of it, and they show like the little thing kind of like moving around and everything. But I always thought that was kind of creepy and kind of cool. I when I bought the CD at the time, I actually thought it might have been one of my favorite Maiden albums at the time. It's not one of the ones I go to the most now, but I still really enjoy this album quite a bit. I love the opening track, Moonchild, Infinite Dreams. Can I Play with Madness? I think it kind of sounds a little corny, but I really like the guitar solo in the middle of that. I think that's my favorite part of that song.
That's what saves it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
agree.
great solo. It really is.
Yeah, it's I was listening to it today. I'm like, man, you know, that's actually what makes this song like worth listening to. Evil That Men Do, awesome. Clairvoyant is another great one. Only the Good Die Young. In my opinion, this is probably like the last like of the classic like Maiden albums. There's probably only one album that they did after this that I liked better than this. I think of all the albums that came before that, it's probably still my least favorite of the first 7 Maiden albums, but I still really enjoy it quite a bit. But then we got to go on to Painkiller. Another awesome album cover, the fucking motorcycle dude on the motorcycle with the saw blades over I don't know, the middle of a volcano with I don't know, buildings and shit getting burned up. But man, I mean, what can I say about this that hasn't been said already? I mean, you got the opening track, Painkiller, which has that sick ass guitar solo in it. I just look for this, and then it just, yeah. Hell Patrol, All Guns Blazing. I just like that the opening with just Halford on the vocals is just awesome. I'm not going to try to imitate it right now. I do that a lot if I'm having a couple of drinks in me, but I don't. Leather Rebel, Metal Meltdown, Nightcrawler. I mean, it's just like start to finish. I mean, yeah, Touch of Evil slows down a little bit, but I guess you gotta have a little breather in there somewhere, I guess. But yeah, just start to finish. And yeah, Scott Travis coming in on drums definitely. He definitely gave them a bit of boost, because if you listen to production on this versus like Ram It Down, it's like a night and day difference. And man, like everyone was saying, it's like, you know, Priest really, they made up for the last 2 albums before this, which I actually like Turbo better than Ram It Down. If we're gonna go back to those albums a bit, but
that was
yeah.
that was last week's
Yeah, I
2
couldn't
weeks
make
ago
that one.
episode. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had something come up at the last minute.
That's
but,
fine. Should
but
happen.
anyway, yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna say which one of the, I love both albums a lot, but I definitely got to go with Painkiller. I mean,
Okay.
it's hard not to pick that one over Seventh Son, but yeah, it's one of my top Priests. Maybe top 5, maybe top 3. Like Defenders has always been my favorite, but this one is pretty close up there too. But yeah, so there we go.
Cool. I guess it's my turn. I remember when like the Painkiller came out, I was much like a lot of us, and it was like Priests. What happened? They were the kings. And I saw them first in '81. I saw them and then listened to Unleashed in the East, and then all of a sudden, like Turbo comes out and they're dressing weird, and it was almost kind of like later on how Metallica turned into this abomination for a little bit. Which kind of still are, but they've kind of gotten back in the right
Hey.
lane. Oh, come on. These guys did Load and Reload and Insane
I love
Anger.
Load. Love it.
Oh, you're gonna be the
Every
fly in
second of it.
you're the fly in the ointment tonight.
Every
Ralph's
second of it.
shaking it every second of Reload.
Every second of it.
And then they put
Even if we
out
get-
what's the other one? Lulu.
That one was
Well,
a
that was
disaster.
shit because Lou Reed was involved with it.
But it
Yeah.
still was that shouldn't have been a Metallica. But anyhow, to me, when they cut their hair and started sucking bananas at the Grammy Awards or whatever,
Fucking banana.
it wasn't good. But that's a whole nother episode of Metallica. But anyhow, so we go back and then you hear Painkiller and you're like, wow, they're back. They threw away the hair metal days or whatever glam look they were doing, and the Painkiller album was solid. We really wanted to go see him again. I saw that tour twice, of course. And from that album, the title track, of course, one of the greatest songs that they do. And to me, it was kind of like a modern Sentinel, because I like the Sentinel a lot. And then the Painkiller and the Nightcrawler is such a great song. Hammer and Anvil, Touch of Evil, solid album. Of course, I'd probably give it about an 8 out of a 10. The Maiden album, I'd probably go back to listen whole albums. I'd probably go back to Seventh Son to listen to it more than I do Painkiller. But the song Painkiller, I think, will give just because of that song, I'll give the slight nod to Painkiller's album. I love The Evil That Men Do. And they perform that live sometimes. And I mean, it's such a great song live too.
Yeah.
Where like Living on the Razor's Edge and you see Bruce, he's up there balancing on a ledge and he's kind of like dangling on the PA and the amp there. And I like the Clairvoyant a lot. I like Infinite Dreams. I like the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I'm a completely different than James on that one. He thinks it's boring, but I will give the slight nod to Painkiller. Maybe tomorrow I'd change my mind on that, and so I'm going to give the slight nod to Judas Priest Painkiller. And I've said that 5 times now. The heat's probably getting to me in Middletown. Tony Dio has got another question, which Ralph already answered. Tony, do you got both of those albums in front of you so you can give a couple of us that haven't listened to it, like show us the tracks, show us the listings?
I was going to bring up right fast. I was looking at the VHS for the Made in England. Tour. I mean, that tour for Seventh Son, they did some great stuff. They broke Killers back out. They broke out. They do Still Life, which is an odd
great
one.
song.
They do The Prisoner on here. Probably played for the first time since that Number of the Beast tour. Probably. So yeah, that would have been cool to see for sure. Going to those 2 albums we just talked about. Yeah, I got No Prayer for the Dying, and Fear of the Dark. I got the Castle ones of those as well.
I'll let you go first, and you can go over the tracks and blah blah blah.
So No Prayer for the Dying was the first one. opens with Tail Gunner. I remember they had a video for that one. Not
Yes.
It's cool. The bass playing on that's really, really cool song, but it doesn't, I don't know. It's okay, I guess. It's not great. Holy Smoke was a good catchy song. And it was about, the televangelists that were on television, stealing
Yeah.
people's money and stuff. Um,
Oh.
that was a pretty good song for it. No Prayer for the Dying. It's okay. Public Enema #1. Never could get into that one.
Downhill.
They have a song called Fate's Warning that's nowhere as good as the band Fate's Warning.
Nope, you're right.
The,
I'm looking
the
at the tracks
Assassin.
now.
The Assassin was okay. It was an okay
Yeah.
track. Run Silent, Run Deep. It was okay, I guess. Hooks in You. That one was somewhat okay. That one had a little catchy part in it. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
Song.
Yeah, bring your daughter to the slaughter. That was originally done by Bruce Dickinson as a solo act on I think it was on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer soundtrack or something?
Friday the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. That's what it was. And it was on a soundtrack.
As you go over,
I remember it being on a soundtrack. I know I had, and it's a but they re-recorded it. Yeah.
As you go over this list, that's the one that's the most memorable of any of these songs to me, looking back on it.
Not a bad song. Not Mother Russia. I don't even remember what that sounds like. It must have been pretty boring.
It's one of those epic enders. It was supposed to be like a rhyme and ancient Mariner, the Mother Russia, and I actually like that song.
I never cared much for this album. I didn't even buy it when it first came out. Like I said, when these Castle CDs came out, I bought the whole set. This one has a couple of cover songs on it. They're doing I think it's Communication Breakdown, a couple other different ones. I don't know if you guys know this. This is the original cover art from Derek Riggs. And I forgot who this guy was supposed to be, but they changed it. In recent years, they've taken the man out, and it's just Eddie reaching out of the grave.
Wow.
But I don't know if you guys recall, supposedly it was somebody, I don't know, somebody in the Maiden organization, maybe Andy Taylor or somebody. And
Chris Allo would probably know, but he's not with us.
Yeah. I just remember reading something about it. Mark Popoff did a book about all Derek Riggs art, and I think it might have been mentioned in that. So we'll move on to 1992. And this would be the last album to feature Bruce Dickinson, and that is Fear the Dark. And if I'm not mistaken, was this the one that Derek didn't do? Maybe it was one of the album covers.
Right. I think Derek Riggs didn't do the artwork on that.
He didn't do this one, yeah. Eddie is a tree. He's been everything else. He's been all kinds of stuff that's cool. Then it's okay, now he's a tree. But this one, I remember, Be Quick or Be Dead. I've always liked that one. Thought that was pretty cool. I like From Hill. And then like back up a minute. I didn't buy this one when it originally came out either. This was another one. And by then I had just like Ralph was saying, had just moved on to other things. But From Here to Eternity is a good song. Afraid to Shoot Strangers I like is cool. I don't remember that much about Fear is the Key or Childhood's End.
I don't.
Wasting Love was a power ballad, and I kind of like that song because I kind of like hair metal and stuff like that. But the guitar solo is the harmony guitars remind me of Thin Lizzy or something in it. It's just like a kind of a slow Thin Lizzy song more than a Poison song or something like that. It's got more in common with just a slow ballad from the early 80s or something. The Chains of Misery, Apparition, Judas Be My Guide. I never cared for that one at all. And I think they've been talking about bringing that one back into the set before. Weekend Warrior, don't remember that one much at all. But Fear of the Dark.
I remember being catchy.
I remember the Weekend Warrior too, and I always thought of Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent,
when that came out, because he had the Weekend Warrior.
Man,
I think I like the Nugent song better though.
The title track for Fear of the Dark just is just one of my favorite Maiden songs, period. I I think what really got me hooked on that song was when they put the live in Rio record out from the reunion tour in 2000. And I was just like, God, and I saw him on that tour, and I remember how well it went over. Because we'll get into future episodes talking about the Blaze Bayley era and stuff. But I remember watching a concert with them with Blaze Bayley that was that had when I was collecting bootlegs and stuff. And I remember they were playing Fear of the Dark over in like Rio or Chile or somewhere, and the audience is singing all the words. And I'm going, this is amazing. I don't even know the words to this song, and then, like I said, a couple years later, I started listening to it and go, man, this is one of the best Maiden songs ever. It's just, and it goes over so great live, So my pick between the two is definitely going to be Fear of the Dark, because just not only for that song, but there's several others on here that I like so much more than No Prayer.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Fear of the Dark too. For sure. I'm out of line now. James, what do you say?
I am going to agree with the two of you. Although I like the cover art for No Prayer for the Dying slightly more than Tree Eddie.
Oh, me too.
There's some decent songs on No Prayer. I do like Tail Gunner a lot. Holy Smoke is fun. And then it's all forgettable for me until Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. And then Mother Russia, suck my dick. So,
Jeez.
oh, geez. So, I mean, yeah, to echo basically what Tony said, all of Fear of the... There's a couple songs in the middle that kind of lose me. Again, The Fugitive, I can't remember how that sounds. Chains of Misery is good. That's a fun song, Chains of Misery. That's got kind of a, you guys call it soccer chant thing in it.
That's what Denny says. I don't mind soccer chants. Denny hates them. Denny was supposed to be here, but he's not showing
I don't
up
mind them
today.
at all. Judas Be My God. Weekend Warrior. That's catchy as hell. I like that. I like those tunes. And of course, Fear of the Dark. That really is one of Maiden's best songs. So if you took the cover art for No Prayer and put it on this, it'd be a way better album because the cover art would be better, and that's about it. I'm taking Fear of the Dark.
Melvin Grant did the cover for No Fear of the Dark.
Melvin Grant is an idiot.
Wow.
And I also looked up the gentleman that they removed from No Prayer for the Dying. It was actually the likeness of Rod Smallwood, their manager, and he didn't like it, so he had Derek Riggs remove it.
He didn't like getting choked by his mascot.
But I don't think it looks like Rod at all. It looks more like Andy Taylor, their other manager.
Huh. What do you say, Tim? Did we lose Tim?
I'm here.
Tim.
What do you say?
One thing I'm noticing is it's interesting because these two albums kind of departed what Maiden, the direction of Maiden was going in for a while.
Good point.
We're talking about Somewhere in Time, and we're talking about Seventh Son.
Yeah.
And if you look at the track listings on these albums, one thing I noticed is they went back to a shorter format for their songs, short, kind of catchy songs. And it's funny because I wasn't planning on reviewing these, so I haven't listened.
Yeah, me either.
I haven't listened to these albums in a long time.
We're gonna get yelled at in the comments for this. Why are you guys reviewing albums? You haven't listened to them.
Oh well, because this was.
We want to get them out of the way.
It's all Tony's.
But that being said, so I saw this tour. It was the No Prayer for the Dying tour, and I also saw prior to that tour kicking off. Before this album had come out, I saw Bruce Dickinson with a solo band at a smaller venue, and Janik Jeers was playing with him. And I remember doing "Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter." They did that song, but Tail Gunner, I loved that song. I remember they opened up with that when I saw them on that tour. But my having not listened to this a while, just remembering the songs that stood out for me, though. I remember I liked Tail Gunner. I always liked Holy Smoke. Public Enemy #1. I thought that song, my memory is that song was kind of catchy. Hooks and You is a catchy song. And of course, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. There's no real long epic songs on the album. Mother Russia is only 5 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's not like super long.
Okay, so to me, in my mind, it was kind of like in one of those epic things, but it's not a long
Yeah.
song. Yeah.
But it's interesting that the tracks are relatively short on this album. And I remember also thinking back that I felt like Bruce Dickinson's songwriting had some influence on these albums too. Because he's got a very catchy, he likes to write catchy songs, and that kind of stood out for me. Now when I visit No Prayer for the Dying, this one it's hard for me to remember, or excuse me, Fear of the Dark. This one I really need to go back and listen to this, but I remember Be Quick and Be Dead. I like that song a lot. Chains of Misery, that song, I remember that being kind of catchy. There's a Bruce, again, there was a Dickinson influence song. Weekend Warrior was another song that was a little catchy. But these were interesting albums because I feel like they kind of stood apart from the other Maiden albums at the time, because I kind of felt like they went back to the short song format and they were kind of going for catchy hooks. And then they kind of resumed their the epic kind of proggy stuff after that again, you know. So even though I haven't listened to these albums in a long time, I do remember I did kind of like them because I felt like they were a little bit of a departure from the 10-minute long epic, prog things, which that to me gets a little old after a while. But I mean, all in all, I like both albums. It's hard for me to really say which one I like more, just because I have to really revisit Fear of the Dark. But I know I did like No Prayer for the Dying, and I did see that tour, so I probably lean a little bit towards No Prayer for the Dying.
Okay.
But yeah.
I mean, these albums are ones I don't revisit, and I haven't owned in a while. But of course, I own a record store, and I played these when they first came out, and I thought they were both disappointing. But I'm going to go with Ralph's point of view on this. At that time, I had moved on to other things. So too, I had moved on to bands like Death and thrash metal and stuff like that, and they weren't hitting big home runs for me anymore. After Seventh Son, I felt it was a big drop from Maiden after that. Other than a couple tracks like Fear of the Dark, there was a couple tracks you wanted to listen to, but the whole album wasn't something I wanted to revisit that much, even when they came out. Though probably in rotation in the store for a few months when they came out, and they were on a shelf getting dusty after that. Christian, what do you have to say?
So yeah, these two from Maiden, I think they kind of, they're not as good as what came before. Like I was saying earlier, I felt that Seventh Son was really kind of like the last of like their kind of classic run, or last of the like really good albums. I mean, that being said, I think they're both okay. I mean, they both have good tracks on them, but I wouldn't say like start to finish, both out, that they're just start to finish classic Maiden records. So start with No Prayer for the Dying. Probably my favorite track would be the opener, Tail Gunner. I think that's a good song. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. That's another catchy one. But the rest of the album, it just doesn't really, I don't know, just doesn't really stick with me at all. And Fear of the Dark is kind of the same, but I mean, I love Be Quick or Be Dead. I think that's an awesome song. And Fear of the Dark too. I mean, that's another epic, awesome track. But there's a couple in between there that I think are pretty catchy. I think Fugitive, that's off of, yeah, Fugitive, I think is a catchy one. And then I think the other one is talking about Chains of Misery. That one's pretty good as well. But yeah, I mean, they're all right, but neither one is really like a drop dead classic in my opinion. But I do prefer Fear of the Dark over No Prayer for the Dying if I have to pick between those two. I think there's a little bit more there that I like than what's on No Prayer for the Dying. And neither I never bought those CDs back in the day when I was getting them made, because I had friends who owned them, and I remember like listening to them and thinking like, these aren't as good as the other ones. So I never felt compelled to go out and buy those, to own those. I mean, I have them like on digital, Apple iTunes now or whatever, but I never felt compelled to get the CDs back in the day, or now, I guess. So yeah. So
If
that's
you can
it.
find the castle ones that go with yours, Christian, get them because Fear of
Yeah.
the Dark, they do a great cover of Space Station #5 from Montrose.
Wow.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, because you know what, when those CDs came out, I thought it was cool, but I never again like it's like at the time. Well, I mean, I was still in high school, so it's not like I'm working full time and I have like the
Yeah,
buy
get what you can get.
So it's like at the time, it's like, yeah, I don't really like this stuff, so I'm not gonna buy it. So I bought the ones that I really wanted to get into, but yeah, those were really cool, reissues that they came out with all those extra, the whole extra CD with that whole. So yeah, I wish I
Yeah,
did
they were
have the whole
nice.
set now, but
The one thing we didn't really bring up either about those is that Adrian Smith was gone. He left,
yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah.
Gannett Gears was his replacement for those 2 albums, and so it definitely changed the sound a little bit for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
good
would say
point.
that definitely had an impact on it because it was definitely, when you
The guitar
take one
flipper.
key musician,
Yeah.
out of the band and bring someone else
Ballerina.
in. Yeah.
He actually had to play more then though, because he was the other guitarist. So he couldn't do
Yeah.
that as much.
Last time I saw Maiden, I was about 20 feet from Janik, and boy, I don't know, after a while. It just seems like I don't know what's going on up there. That's yeah. Ralph, after listening to what we had to say, want to put any more input on those 2 records or anything else?
No, just I still pretty much it's hearing all the songs kind of makes me lean a little bit maybe towards Fear the Dark more.
Yeah.
And I remember we were gonna do an episode last year because it was like an anniversary for Fear the Dark, and I remember listening to it, and we ended up not doing the episode for some reason. So I
Yeah.
was a little bit more familiar with that album, but then hearing the songs on the other one, thinking, yeah, they're kind of very similar. It's very close, but I still go. I'll change mine to Fear the Dark, I think.
Cool. Well, I guess this kind of winds down this episode. We kept it about an hour long, which is kind of cool. People got a short attention span, especially this time of year. I think people doing stuff, but right now a lot of people stuck inside or in a swimming pool in the Northeast because this summer has been hot. It's kicked off
Yes,
out of
it
the gate
has.
hot, and it has been hot.
Brutal.
90s, and hundreds and whatever else. But hey, it was great to get back and do this episode. I will be we're talking about doing an episode on Wednesday this week. James is interested in talking about some Zakk Wylde and BLS. So we'll see if we can get some people to do that. I may not be around for that episode, but I think Denny may host it. So
That
we'll figure
sucks.
that
I really
out.
want you to hear my story.
Oh,
Mhm.
me?
Yeah.
I'd have to do a lot of homework because I listen to Zakk and BLS in my shop because it plays in a reel, but I haven't sat down and listened to those albums. Maybe
Yeah.
I get a chance to do it, but I don't know if I can make it Wednesday this week. I got a lot going on. Next week, I probably won't be able to do anything either because I've got the Orange County Fair responsibilities and I'm emceeing a lot of the bands there. And if you're in the area, make sure you come out this Thursday night. It's Into the Void at the Orange County Fair. Tom's regular on the show sometimes. And next week we've got out of the metal world, we've got Psycho Circus on Wednesday, Iron Cobra Thursday, Eyes of the Nile, a great Iron Maiden tribute from Virginia, is going to be there on Friday, and then Livewire and Battery, the Metallica and AC/DC tributes, are there next Saturday. There's
Cool.
also other bands. I plan on going this Saturday. There's an Electric Light Orchestra tribute coming in,
That's
which
cool.
is something I've never seen the actual band, but these guys, like their promos, it looks like you're looking at someone in 75. So I guess they
Wow.
kind of dress up like a little bit.
They got the cello player and all.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
they do. So probably hit that. So I probably won't be on next week again, but we will revisit this series and probably get some new stuff. And Ovi, if you're listening, we missed you tonight. We haven't seen you lately.
Hell yeah.
And we'll talk to you next time on the Rock Fantasy Files. Please mention in the comments what you like better from these albums. Yell at us for not listening to those albums we just reviewed. Other than Tony Dio, he's listened to them a little bit more than us. But we'll see you next time. Bang. For James and Tony and Tim and Christian and Count Ralphus, we'll see you next time on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel.